Well, hello and welcome to your NEWSMAX Daily for September 24th, 2024, the fourth and final Tuesday of the month. 1 week from today is October the 1st, Tuesday, October 1st. That should mean something to you. It is the one and only vice presidential debate between Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, the Republican nominee, and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the Democrat nominee. The October 1st debate will be moderated by Norah O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan of CBS News. Meanwhile, the Harris campaign is putting up billboards in multiple states mocking Donald Trump's refusal at a second debate with Kamala Harris, with Trump in a chicken suit and the caption, "There's no debate, Donald Trump's a chicken." Creative, yes. If Trump did something like that, though, there is no doubt that it would somehow, some way be sexist or racist or both, right? And this is the headline of the day, at least so far. The Harris campaign weighing a trip to the U.S. southern border amid polling concerns. That's from CNN. And the New York Times is confirming Vice President Harris will visit the U.S.-Mexico border while she's in Arizona on Friday as the campaign tries to close the gap with former President Trump on immigration and border issues. The former president leads Harris on the immigration and border issue nationwide and is leading Harris by 5 points in Arizona, according to the most recent polling. So now the Border Czar is going to go visit the border for only the second time in 3 3/4 of a year that she's been the vice president. And sometime this week, the vice president is expected to introduce or lay out another economic plan or more economic proposals. Because with 41 days to go, they realized the proposal on price gauging, the vice president's word, not mine, wasn't met favorably by the experts. As for former President Trump, you may have seen it or heard it on Newsmax last night, a Make America Great Again rally in Indiana, Pennsylvania.
As DA and as Attorney General, she destroyed San Francisco and she destroyed all of California. It's like a different place. It's not recognizable now. She's coming to destroy the United States of America, and we're not going to let it happen. We can't let it happen. She led the change in California law so that if you steal less than $950, you are not prosecuted. And if you steal more than $950, you're actually not prosecuted either. You want to know? But how about this? The kids are walking in with computers. They're putting stuff, they're adding it up so that if it's less than $950, they go into a judge, they say, Your Honor, it's less than, oh, okay, case dismissed. How sick? Is this country sick? Less than $1,000, you don't get prosecuted. She even lied about Joe Biden's cognitive abilities. Remember, she said, oh, he's fine, he's fine. A great disservice to the American people because he's negotiating with Russia, China, North Korea. He's negotiating with people that are probably in a state of shock. They say, can you believe this? Because they're all at the top of their game. I know all of them, they're at the top of their game. And we are at the most dangerous point in the history of our country. We could end up in World War III because of this lunatic and her. She's so much worse. She wants to take away your guns and your rifles in violation of the Second Amendment. And she's a communist, and everybody knows it, and our country is not ready for a communist president and won't be for a long, long, long time to come. That's why less than 2 months from now, we are going to tell her that we've had enough. Our country can't take it anymore. Kamala, you've been a terrible vice president. You'll be the worst president in the history of our country, superseding even crooked Joe Biden. Kamala, you are a disaster to the United States of America. Kamala, you are fired. You're fired. Get out. Get out.
That was last night in the all-important battleground state of Pennsylvania. This afternoon, Donald Trump is at an event in Savannah, Georgia, which, by the way, is such a cool town. The event is about taxes and manufacturing. The port of Savannah, also one of the busiest in the country. With more on the race for the White House and specifically the announcements from the vice president's campaign, this is political analyst Mark Halperin.
Well, she's been doing a lot of stuff involving celebrities, particularly the Oprah event she did. Mm-hmm. She does plan to give a major economic speech this week. But if you listen closely to her team, they're still saying she's too busy to do interviews, too busy to do press conferences. She's got to meet voters. I don't like when reporters couch her failure to do interviews or tough interviews as great strategy, because while it is that, it's not a favor to the press to do interviews or press conferences. It's to allow the public to know what she thinks. There's mixed opinion about what the data shows. Some say the strategy is working great. Other data, including the focus group I did last week, suggests undecided voters are simply unhappy with the level of understanding she's giving them about what she's going to do.
She talked about this week that she'll be unveiling her economic policies. She talks about, an opportunity economy. And, okay, well, specifically, what does that mean? And then if it's so great, why didn't she do it? That's still something she's not going to be able to defend against if she's actually in front of the right interviewers, compared to maybe a very friendly moderator debate that she was hoping for, Mark.
Or friendly interviews. I mean, I've looked closely at the interviews and the transcripts of what she's done on CNN, on WPVI in Philadelphia, the Black Journalists Association, and then the local, the radio she's done.
Yeah.
If you ask a question and you don't get a straight answer, it wasn't worth asking the question originally if you don't follow up. And there have been very few follow-ups to her because she doesn't really answer the question. Donald Trump is vague, too. But the polling suggests voters have a better sense of what he'd do, in part because he was actually president. And they have a good sense of the pillars of his economic philosophy. They don't about her. It may be fine. But again, there's some indications that it's a problem for voters and it could cost her the election.
She got the endorsement not from the Teamsters, but from the IRS union. You really want to be touting that?
Well, I mean, I was a little surprised by that. But again, she's got a different coalition if she's going to win than Donald Trump does. And she's being supported, for instance, by a lot of Hollywood elites. Now, Donald Trump loves Hollywood. I don't think he turned down elite endorsements. But she is leaning into celebrity in a way that some Democrats have in the past, some who've won and some who've lost.
Yeah, Donald Trump picked up this endorsement of the mayor, this Democratic mayor in Michigan. He's Yemeni American, and he says Trump's the right leader in these critical times. He talks about his principle. These are critical times. I mean, we have a live image of Israel. I mean, we don't know where this is going to go, how far it's going to escalate. We're sending more troops there. But to have that from a Democrat in Michigan seems like all the perhaps pandering or threading the needle, if you will, to those Michigan voters may not have been a winning strategy, Mark, for Kamala Harris.
Well, she inherited a tough situation, both the facts on the ground in the United States and the facts on the ground in the Middle East. And what's gone on in Michigan, the Trump campaign has pushed very hard to undermine her support, both with those who are more pro-Israel, those who are more pro-Palestinian. We don't see the campus protesters be defiling her as much as some thought they would. We don't see her being heckled at her rallies or on the road as much, although they're pretty secretive about the location of her events, in part for that reason. But as you suggested, we're dealing now with the powder keg in the Middle East. And if things explode there, then I think her time, the president's time, are going to be more focused, at least I hope they will be, on what's going on. And if she doesn't do her day job well, she is unlikely to get promoted.
That is political analyst Mark Halperin on Newsmax with host Bianca De La Garza. If she doesn't do her day job, she hasn't done her job for 3 3/4 years now, and certainly isn't doing it now that she's campaigning to be the president, right? Bianca mentioned the Middle East as well. Multiple reports say some 500 people were killed overnight in Lebanon as Israel launched strikes on hundreds of sites across that country, saying that they are being used by Hezbollah terrorists. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
The IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously.
Netanyahu telling the people of Lebanon that the war is against Hezbollah and not against them. Let's go back to Bianca De La Garza.
Breaking news right now, Middle East. We're watching live pictures here. It is 7:48 in the evening there. Israel military carrying out strikes in southern Lebanon, but also significant one in Beirut that may have taken out a top Hezbollah commander. Also today, the U.S. and the Pentagon announcing just a short time ago, breaking at this hour, that they are sending additional troops to the Middle East. This is according to Pentagon Press Secretary Major General Pat Ryder. No details on how many forces or what they are tasked to do. Currently, the U.S. has about 40,000 troops in the region, but these new deployments are after the significant strikes by Israel against targets inside Lebanon. This all started again last week as we saw those exploding pagers now, and it has escalated, and it looks to be a significant success for Israel. Pleased to bring in former CIA analyst Fred Fleitz. Fred, pleasure to have you. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
So we're sending in more troops. The ones that are there are sitting ducks. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. By the way, it's announced that Joe Biden, not only is he on the world stage, he's also making time to go on The View this week, Fred. All of this, the optics, to me, if you're Iran, you're sitting there, you're saying this vacuum in the West here continues to be something that they are going to try and take advantage of. Despite losing Hezbollah leaders, they will never stop.
I think that's right. Look, the Biden-Harris administration wants to claim it's doing something, so it's sending more troops to the region for some reason. They're not going to get involved in this fight in Lebanon or in Gaza. And even Biden officials have admitted that Joe Biden will have no role whatsoever in Middle East peace for the end of his presidency. What's interesting about this Israeli attack on Hezbollah is that it really is undermining the credibility of Iran's main terrorist proxy. Beforehand, the general understanding was that if Israel ever attacked Iran or attacked another Iran ally, Iran would retaliate with Hezbollah. But now Hezbollah is being destroyed and may not be a credible or even capable proxy for Iran in the future. And I think this actually undermines Iran's capability to be a rogue state and to be a threat to Israel.
Yeah, it's so significant. The pagers that were exploding, what a kinetic type of warfare that the IDF used. There's this head commander, Ali Karaki. According to Lebanese media, they're reporting right now he's been eliminated. If that is the case, and you're talking about, Hezbollah being really not just crippled with communications, but now losing top leadership, they've already said they've got 2 more members eliminated this morning. The death toll is the deadliest since 2006 in Lebanon. But we also have to know that there's Hamas and there's the Houthis. So Iran may be taking some hits here. But at the end of the day, Fred, this situation in the Middle East is far from one that seems to be settling down. If anything, it seems to be heating up under Biden-Harris.
I think that's right. And Israel is trying to promote its security by establishing Israeli deterrence, because American deterrence has eroded so badly because of the incompetence and weakness of the Biden administration and the perceived weakness of Joe Biden as a weak and mentally incapable commander-in-chief. And I think that's led to all kinds of opportunities for America's adversaries. You're right, these other terrorist groups are there. I think the security situation is going to be bad until Donald Trump returns to the presidency, hopefully in January. If he doesn't, if Kamala Harris comes in, I'm very worried what will happen, because she will be seen as a much less serious, much weaker president than Biden.
That's former CIA analyst Fred Fleitz on Newsmax. So the Biden-Harris administration is sending more U.S. troops to the Middle East, contradicting what the vice president has recently said on the campaign trail. And once again, the world will be watching as President Biden speaks at the United Nations today. As Americans, not as Republicans, not as Democrats, not as independents, just as Americans, we have to hope that there is no teleprompter issues, that he doesn't screw up reading the teleprompter, that he doesn't try to go off script or anything. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who you just heard from, is scheduled to speak at the UN later this week, and outside of the United Nations building, the streets of New York flooded with protesters. For more, we go to this morning's edition of Wake Up America.
Joining us now for a preview of what we can expect out of the UN today is Senior National Security Analyst, former Acting Director of National Intelligence, and former U.S. Ambassador to Germany, Rick Grenell. Rick, great to see you this morning. So,
welcome.
Obviously, we don't want to see something like that. But do you get nervous when you see that President Biden is going to address the UN? Like, we all get nervous.
Yeah, I get really nervous because it's on the world stage, right? We're not the only ones watching. It's not just about our election, and we think, oh, gosh, Joe is old, and, you know, there's a problem. Look, we have two major wars that have happened under Biden-Harris, and when you look at moments like that, and you see moments like Kamala Harris not being able to go off script with Oprah, you realize why we're in this situation. And, you know, I know world leaders, and they all privately complain. They don't always love to be told what to do. They don't want a strong leader in America that's telling them this is the way. So sometimes they don't love having a strong leader like Donald Trump. But they absolutely do not want a weak leader because they know what that means. It means war. And we've got the largest war in Europe that we've seen 50 years. We've got the largest war in the Middle East that we've seen in 50 years. It's a real scary thought when you look and you see what's happening around the world because we have these weak moments. Joe Biden doesn't know that Modi is sitting behind him. You know, you got to put yourself in Modi's situation, too. He's now thinking, I can't wait for Donald Trump. We were like, Donald Trump came to India. We're buddies. Like, we can talk. We can talk about trade. We can talk about what's going on. You know, the other thing I'd like to know is if Eric Garcetti was in the audience, and since he is the U.S. ambassador to India. Yeah. Did he come? Is he here?
Did he travel to Delaware to be there? Rick, this is scary on so many levels because Joe Biden is president for what? Another 4 months. Okay, today's the 24th. Inauguration day is January 20th. So that's what? Just under 4 months. We're on the precipice of what you just mentioned, a wider war in the Middle East, and we're on the precipice of what could possibly be World War III breaking out as a result of what's going on in Ukraine, a war that's in calendar year number 3. If something does happen, if there is a serious development, forget about between now and Election Day, 42 days away, between now and Inauguration Day, do you trust that man right there to handle the situation?
That is the question that I ask myself every single day as I scour the news, and the question that I ask you to ask yourself every day. All right, here's what Ambassador Grenell said.
No, and you know, the most scary moments for America are going to be when Donald Trump wins and doesn't take over until January. If you think about from November to January, we're in waiting for a new president, but Joe Biden is in charge. Kamala Harris has been defeated. What are they going to do? Are they even going to be engaged? Are other countries going to test us? This is a very important moment, and we need some answers. We need some reporters who push for more transparency from Jake Sullivan, from the chief of staff, from Avril Haines, who is our director of national intelligence. We still don't know. What did America know about the October 7th attack in the lead up? What did we share with Israel? I don't understand why members of Congress are not pushing for this information. Why isn't the New York Times reporter demanding that Avril Haines answer these questions? I will tell you this, when Donald Trump is elected, we're going to get to the bottom of the information. What did we know in the lead up? Because if we didn't know anything, that's worse than actually having some raw intelligence, not being able to put it together and not sharing it with the Israelis.
Ambassador, you're going to be back with us at the top of the hour. Jack Kingston, former Georgia congressman, is going to join us. A lot to talk about, but I think, Kamala Harris, she could win in November. Who knows how it's going to play out? It's very close right now. It feels like Donald Trump is starting to pick up some momentum. Kamala has the media wind at her back. We'll see. This is going to be a test for the dominant media. How powerful is the dominant media? We'll find out on November the 5th. But if she does lose, she's going to be like Tim Kaine. She will go back to the political abyss, never to be heard from again. Like, I don't think Kamala's a candidate again in 2028. No. Just a quick thought on that.
No. She's a radical San Francisco type. Yeah. The more we know, the more we see. She doesn't want us eating red meat because it's bad for the environment. I mean, it's a disastrous policy. A plethora of videos from her. The more you know, the more you don't like.
Former acting director of U.S. intelligence and U.S. ambassador Rick Grenell saying, the more you know, the more you don't like. The problem is so many Americans are uninformed, and that's what the Kamala campaign is banking on, right? If you've been listening to the NEWSMAX Daily for some time now, you know I always say the more research you do, the less you believe. Well, watch some of the many Kamala Harris videos that are out there, as Rick said, and you decide. And let's wrap it up with Carl Higbee's conversation on Frontline with Congresswoman Harriett Hageman.
One of the good ones, Wyoming Congresswoman Harriett Hageman, who obviously trounced Liz Cheney by 40 points in her primary. Ma'am, honor to have you on. You are one of the few people who just shoot them straight.
I try to. I think it's my job and my responsibility because I go back to the very foundation of what you've been talking about as well, which is our Constitution.
Yeah. Well, you know, ma'am, the bigger thing, too, is this spending bill. It's like I realize you're trying to keep a functioning government. I understand the balancing act. But at some point, what is the threshold to say, like, guys, this is not working. Let's go back to the drawing board and scratch all of it?
Well, and the reality is that the way that they've been able to push us into a $35 trillion debt is because of continuing resolutions and omnibus spending bills. We don't ever ratchet spending back down. And in fact, in this continuing resolution, which I will be voting against, but keep in mind, a continuing resolution is supposed to keep the spending at the same level. They're going to try to add another $240 million to the Secret Service. Now, I want to keep Donald Trump safe. I absolutely want to keep him safe. But the fact is that the Secret Service has the money and the resources to do it. Mm-hmm. Throwing more money at this does not change the culture. Throwing more money at this does not take away their stupid DEI training that they have in the Secret Service. Throwing more money at this does not address the issue. It just gives the Secret Service and Mayorkas more money to waste on things that they shouldn't be spending money on in the first place.
Right. No, that's actually, we threw $20 trillion at the war in the Middle East, and we couldn't unseat a bunch of people in caves barefoot with AK-47s because it was political will, to your point. The other thing, too, is it's UN week in New York. You can't go anywhere. They could just chop a couple $1 billion off by not blocking half the streets in this place. It's unbelievable. This would-be assassin, though, this is a big thing. You're talking about Secret Service. He had 6 cell phones, 2 license plates, 12 pairs of gloves, a list of dates of Trump events in the next several weeks, and a letter addressed to, quote, the world. He wrote in there, he said, this was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, but I failed you. I tried my best and gave it all the gumption I could muster. It's up to you to finish the job, and now I'll offer $150,000 to whomever can complete the job. Ma'am, this is deeply concerning.
Terribly concerning. And the fact is that the Secret Service, again, is not giving us the information that we're entitled to know more information about who he was colluding with, who he was conspiring with, who was giving him this information. It's the same about the kid in the Pennsylvania situation, the first assassination attempt. Do you honestly believe that this kid was sophisticated enough to have the kind of electronics that he did, to have the accounts that he did, that he was using all of this very sophisticated technology in order to communicate? And they claim that they don't know anything about him. They don't know the motive. Well, we all know what the motive was. We know what the motives were for both of them. And that is because the Democrats have weaponized crazy people to try to take out Donald Trump. I mean, it's really that simple and that basic. Right. But the fact is, to what extent were these people working with other people? I do not believe that either one of them were lone wolves, and yet the Secret Service is not providing us the information that the American people are entitled to, Congress is entitled to. So again, why are we going to throw another $250 million at an agency that's failing right now?
Right, and somehow you and I are domestic threats or threats to democracy because we want to pay less taxes.
Carl Higbie hosts a Frontline with Wyoming Congresswoman Harriett Hageman. Trump is at an event in Savannah this afternoon, as I mentioned, and the Trump campaign announced that he is headed back to North Carolina tomorrow, where he just had a rally in Wilmington over the weekend. Wilmington is on the coast. Tomorrow, he will be in a town called Mint Hill. That's a suburb of Charlotte, North Carolina, where I used to work at the mighty News Talk 1110 99.3 WBT. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who has had her differences with Donald Trump, issued a solid endorsement of Vice President Harris, disguised as a warning about the economy yesterday, saying, quote, veering off the current course in November could jeopardize our economic trajectory. That from Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. On Wall Street, stocks opened in the green this morning after the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at a new record high of 42,125 on Monday. The Boeing strike, still one of the top business headlines, as the company said it's making its best and final offer to the striking machinists, including performance bonuses and upgraded retirement benefits. The union says the company missed the mark. Keep up with all of the news on Newsmax and Newsmax.com, and make sure you're streaming on Newsmax Plus for the complete lineup of all of your favorite shows, hosts, and great guests, like political analyst Mark Halperin, like former Ambassador Rick Grenell, former Deputy Press Secretary Hogan Gidley, Senator Rick Santorum, Governor Huckabee, Judge Napolitano, Professor Dershowitz, and many, many others. NewsMaxPlus.com. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. I hope you enjoy it. Drop a comment at radio_Marino. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Maybe get some tacos and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real.